Okay, so now on with the rest of this video. Like I said, I had to break this up in two. It was just going to be too darn long. So the transmission's out. I'm going to take the bell housing and all that other stuff off. Probably cut off the rest of the exhaust and go through a few things, and then we're going to clean off the motor. Going to vacuum it. Okay, now with the transmission out of the way, we could take this bell housing off. Let's see. Of course, there are some screws going through the backside there, which I don't know what size those are. And I hope they're a 10, because I have a 10 down here. Because if not, I'm going to have to get up and go figure it out. Yes, they're a 10. Okay. Stick my head over here a little bit. I still got to unbolt the rest of that exhaust too. Not a fan of these pull style clutches, but I mean, it did work good. I don't even know the reason behind it. I don't know the reason, like why they went away from the push style to the pull style. This ain't gonna fit on there. Cradola. And you know what? I don't have a universal 15. I really need a universal 15. I gotta do these by hand now. All right, this is what it is. Actually, let me get a short extension. I think I have one here. At least I had one before. Where'd you go? Oh, it's down here with the half-inch stuff over at the rear end. Ouch, that hurt. Okay. Okay. So all I want is a shorter extension. That's all. No big deal. Still might not work. No. I'm gonna need a swivel. I really don't think I have one. Let me double check. All right, so I got a wobble extension, and I'm gonna try it this way. Tell you what, they're tight. Ugh. Wow, are they tight. I've had several wobble extensions over the years, different ones, and honestly, the only ones that I've found that are any good are the snap-ons. Okay. So that should all be free. Now I should be able to zip them out with the gun. Man, they were tight. Now, I don't know if you can see this tube above my hand here. I don't think you can. Can you see that tube up here? Actually, you'll be able to see it easier when I get this bell housing off. Just stuck on a pin. Stupid shield has more bolts holding it in. Yep, there's more bolts holding it in. At least one. Now you remember the Escort that I showed you, how the throw-out bearing pushes on the fingers. This one actually pulls on the fingers, in case you didn't understand what I was talking about before. And I honestly don't understand the reasoning behind the difference, or behind doing it this way. There's got to be some kind of a reason, I would assume. There's another one over here. So that's off. That's the bell housing. There's that stupid tin shield, which may just leave in place, but I should probably pull the starter off. But anyway, this tube up here, that's like an EGR tube. It's going to the intake. I have to pull the intake off of this thing to get the motor out, because there's just not enough room underneath the cowl to facilitate getting it out. So I may actually have, well, not that I may have to, I'm going to probably cut that thing with a Sawzall, because I just don't care. It would never go back anyway. So I'm going to probably cut that thing with a Sawzall to take it out, because the rear bolts are just a nightmare to get to, unless... Actually, maybe I can get to them now. Now that the bell housing and transmission, everything else is out of the way. Good question. All right. Let me see about getting this flywheel off of here. I mean, pressure plate. Those 9/16s or those 15s? They're tight. That's what they are. I think they might be 9/16s. Either that or this is just a cruddy 15. I don't know. All right. Yeah, I got to drop this exhaust off. And this is just tedious. So I'm going to pop that starter off. All right. Well, you guys want to watch it. You say you do. So let me get ready and we'll start doing that. All right. So I decided, instead of wasting time cutting or taking those bolts out that are all rusted, I'm just going to cut this darn thing off. Because I just want the pipe as short as possible, because if it's hanging down like that, usually it becomes a pain in the neck pulling the motor out, because it winds up hitting everything. So. Everyone dead, and I think I'm actually hitting the stud on the other side. Can't tell. Yeah, I'm hitting a stud on the other side. Okay, well, battery went dead. So, where's my other battery? I know I brought two out here. Where did I put it? I don't know. Oh, it's over here. Ugh. Sorry. Hi. Okay. These are my small little batteries that I'm using for this. Oops. Damn it. I don't want to do that, but I did. Dang it. That's because I keep hitting that stud. It's kind of a weird angle to do that at. It's actually some thick pipe. Kind of surprised. All right, let's do the other side. On the other side, I got to be careful because the oil filter is right there too. I don't care about the wiring harness. But let's see if I can't get you into a good spot here where you can kind of see what I'm doing. All right. Oops. Okay. So all of those pipes are out of the way. All right, so I want to get this flywheel off of here. Well, actually, that's probably not going to matter all that much. But I do want to get that pipe and stuff off the back of the motor, which is all the way up there. So let me see if I can't get something that'll get up there. All right, well, I figured I actually had the right socket for this pressure plate. You may as well take it off. You see on this one, the fingers should be going inward. Yeah, see they're dropping in. Pretty cool, right? All right, now that they're loose, I can go with the smaller gun. It's just easier maneuver with the smaller gun underneath here. Okay. All right. So, as you can see, there's barely any wear on there from when they cut it. Yeah, this all looks like it's in mint condition. So I'm just going to stick this off to the side. I'm just catching all the bolts out of this thing so I don't accidentally lose them. Well, whoever did it did a good job because they did actually Loctite these bolts in place like you're supposed to. Oops. Just trying to knock them out so I can keep them together. All right, I'm just collecting them real quick. Putting them off to the side. All right, so now, you can see paint marks on there, like as if they torqued it and then marked it. All right. So we may as well take all of this off. Just to make our lives easier when we're coming out with the motor. All right. One bolt left. We don't know if it's going to fall, so what you do is you crack it free like that. Oops. And then verify that it's going to stay up there. And it is. So I'm not quite sure how heavy that flywheel is. I got a feeling it's a little heavy. Ugh. Actually, it's not bad at all. I thought it'd be a lot heavier. All right, so now that tin plate fell off. So now you can see the starter. You can see that stupid tube in the back. All right, so I think next step is I got to get up there and try to get those two nuts off for that tube, or just cut it. Well, I still got to get to the back of the intake to get the bolts out. Like I said, there's just not enough room underneath the cowl to do all of this. All right. All right, let's do this. Let's take a break because I think I got to charge my phone. We're going to take a break here. And then when we come back, we're going to attack those intake bolts from up top, and I may just saw all that tube off because I really don't care about it. Yeah, how about this? Let's just get it out of the way, because if I don't have to come back here, so be it. There we go. That's fine. This way, I don't have to come back underneath the car. All right, let's go take the light out. Let's get all the tools out of here, and we're going to take a break. All right, so for this part, all we're going to do is vacuum off the top of the motor here. Get rid of some of this junk. enough mice and squirrels and stuff to leave. What I'm doing with this is just stirring up the dirt. I gotta pull the intake off, and I want to try to keep as much of the dirt from falling in as possible. I mean, I know I'm not going to be able to prevent all of it, but I'll tell you what, this vacuum cleaner attachment puts a heck of a restriction on it. Another light. Obviously, you can tell the car's done some fitting. Okay, so that's all off of there. I got to pull the fuel lines off. I need a special tool to do that, and I have one somewhere. Gotta find it. Oops. A fuel line disconnect tool. That pipe I was telling you about back there, you see I cut it. But yeah, I gotta get these intake bolts all out of here. And of course, nothing on this motor is easy in this car. When they used this motor in the Impalas and the Roadmasters and the Caprices, the police cars and stuff like that, there at least you had some room to work on them. These things were just a nightmare. And that distributor is that's a joke, but whatever. I guess because they shoved this thing so far underneath the cowl, there's no room to work on it. All right, we're back. Now, some of these intake bolts are a real pain in the neck to get to. Let me tell you, I got a short 9/16 and I have a swivel extension on here. I really need to buy a set of universal sockets. Oh, actually, I have American universals, but they're kind of like a real cruddy chrome one. I don't have metric. Like I said, those universals that I do have, they are like the cheap of the cheap. Now, why this bolt all of a sudden is getting tight coming out is beyond me. Oh, I know why. It's hitting this stupid bracket. hitting this bracket right here, this throttle cable bracket. So go without hitting it. All right. That's one. Unfortunately, this isn't the what do you call it? The Vortex style, where they only used 2, 4, 6, 8 intake bolts. This is like the old school Chevy style, where they have a bunch of them. To get to this one, I either got to do this one by hand, meaning I hand ratchet, or I got to take the throttle body off. It's probably easier just to take the throttle body off at this point. All right, hang on a second. Now, I have to have my phone on charge, so I can't have the microphone thingy hooked up. So hopefully this is working out for you. Now, I did realize I had the microphone setting for the phone set at a different setting than I would normally use without using a microphone. The setting I had it on was for using a microphone, so I don't know if it's going to make a difference now, if it sounds any better or worse or whatever. But I guess we're going to find out. I tell you what, all of the plastic tubing and rubber hoses are just so brittle and dried up. I'm gonna have to. There's actually a hose on this side. Let me just cut it. It's actually a coolant hose. I'm not really concerned about it. Make my life easier. Alright, so throttle body out of the way, but man, I tell you what, these hoses are just brittle. Alright. Putting that off to the side. All right. Let's crack this one free. All right, it's already loose. Crack this one free. It's already reasonably loose. And then GM, they mount brackets. I love how they always did that. Hold on a second, I'm getting you tangled up here or something. These two brackets here go to an intake manifold stud bolt. GM loves mounting stuff in very inconvenient spots, this being one of them. So, oh, those two brackets are actually in one. Put that off into the pile. And let's see. I'm going to use a deep socket on this. Alright, what we're going to do, since I got that loose, use my little gun here. Take that one out. Take that one out. Take that one out. I'm just putting these all off to the side. Actually, because the car is up a little bit, I gotta get something to stand on. Hang on a second. I have the tire that I used for when I pulled the tranny out. There we go, that's giving me some nice room. holds this in place? It's always, I gotta say, GM always leaves you guessing with things like, what holds this in place and what holds that in place? Well, there's a bracket there too. So let me get that bracket out of the way because I can't get to the bolt below it otherwise. So let me get that out of the way. Looks to be an 8mm, which I believe I have on the floor over here from when I was under the car. Let's see what I have. This looks like an 8. I decided I'm not even going to bother with the fuel lines until I have the intake loose, because the fuel lines are all flexible. So I can get that intake loose, bring it forward to get the fuel lines off. Now I will probably be going through this motor and finding out what happened to it. Like I said, it wound up with low oil pressure and a rod knock. So, and it wasn't severe, and I did not want to destroy the motor. So, okay. So hopefully you can see me getting these other bolts out. There again, I apologize if I'm in your way. Nothing I can do about that. I'm actually impressed that the nut came off. There's a lot of times that those bolts like that have a stud on them, a lot of you know this, a lot of times the stupid thing will start spinning, and then you got to figure out a way to hold the bottom, and it just becomes a nightmare. I'm going to have to re-vacuum this intake because junk is everywhere. When I say junk, I mean from the squirrels or whatever it was that got in here. I just dropped something. A socket. All right, let me vacuum this thing out. Let me move you back a bit. And then let me vacuum that out some more. Actually, let me straighten this leg out. I'll tell you, I hate this. I hate this tripod I have at home. It's terrible. I got such a good rating. I'm so disappointed. All right. Continue here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to switch up a little bit. We're going to use, let's see if I have a shorter, I think I have a shorter wobble extension. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on a minute. All right. So like I said, I apologize if the audio is not great. It's because I can't have the microphone on while I'm charging. And normally in a situation like this too, when you're taking an intake off, you basically you should go in the reverse procedure for the installation. In terms of backing the bolts out so you don't accidentally warp the manifold. I'm not too worried about it, because especially since I ain't going to be keeping this. I'll be getting rid of it. I doubt, I mean, I might be using it for something else in the future. I don't know yet. This is basically the same stuff that was used in a Corvette at the time. I think the block might be a little bit different, or the heads might be a little bit different. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a big Chevy guy to know for sure. All right. I remember having to reseal one of these things under warranty. And I wasn't happy about it. Because the job is a bear. But if I was doing this at work, or if I was doing this at the dealership, of course I'm using either air tools or electric tools. I don't have any of those here except the guns, and obviously a gun is not going to fit under here. So it's all by hand. General rule of thumb, when you go to back a screw out, like when you backed it out enough, you think, and you're going to do it by hand, if the ratchet keeps ratcheting back, it's probably too tight to do by hand. I mean, unless you got really strong grip, it's probably too tight to do by hand. This thing was just about at a point of being able to come out with no issue. That's why I did that. All right. So this is actually the last bolt on this side. This bolt is already loose to the, in other words, it's not holding the ratchet back. And man, I could smell the GM sealer that they used. The kind of sealer that they used on the threads, it like brings back memories from the dealership. All right, let's switch everything around to this side. I think there's a house party going on next door. I know what it sounds like. I hear a lot of commotion. I hear kids, so good for them. All right, let's pause this for a second. All right, so now we're going to take the bolts out on this side. The ones in the back look like they're a real joy to get to. All right, let's see what we're going to do here. I'm going to vacuum this side out too. This is where I wish I had a electric ratchet. But one day I'll get one. Just not right now. And once this motor is out too, then we're going to put the wheels back on this thing, and we're going to push this outside, and we're going to power wash this engine back. We'll clean everything up. So much junk in there. When I say junk, I mean like junk from mice or squirrels or whatever in the world got underneath the hood of this thing. Amazing they didn't chew through any wiring harnesses. The only thing I saw that they chewed through was one vacuum hose on the passenger side. I will tell you, this is flippin' tedious. Just trying to get the nut out of the socket. Just gonna stick it up there for now. Some of this is chalk out of the way. Out of the way. There's some tape of some sort back there. And those two bolts look like a nightmare to get to in the back. I still got this one bolt to get out. That was just a nut that they took off. Like I said, it was, shoot, 19, well, these were under warranty, so 1995, 96, 97, something in that range. It was a time when I did an intake manifold gasket on one of these, and I actually did 2 motors on these things. This hose is driving me nuts. It's actually the washer fluid. And in the back, we have what appears to be the purge solenoid that goes to a bracket on a studded intake bolt. Yahoo! So I may actually have to pull these fuel lines off under the cowl because I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough room to get in there to get to that. Let me vacuum out this side. Hold on. Dickens of a time shutting that thing off. All right. On to these last 2 bolts. Like I said, they don't look like they're in a fun spot. I can't even show you because I can't even get back there. But they are all the way in that back corner. All right. I think we're going to use the short first to get the nut off for what I think is the purge solenoid. I don't even know what it is. Don't really care either. If I can even get on it. I can't even get on it. All right. Maybe a longer socket because it'll add length to this whole thing. Nope. All right. I am definitely going to have to go with a universal socket on that one. There's just no way with that purge valve in place. Hang on. Let me see if you can see this. See that nut back there? That nut? Well, I have the fuel line just above it, and I have that solenoid right there. And then there's so obviously I got to get the nut off, get that solenoid out, then get the bolt out, and then below it is another bolt. So, yahoo, terrific. All right. Now, I'm not sure if I kept saying that this is a 94 Camaro. It's actually a 95 Camaro. because I might have been saying it was a 94, but I'm not 100% positive. All right, let's see. Like I said, these are some ultra cheap universal sockets. And of course, the hardest one to get to, well, it was spinning the stud part down through the manifold, but luckily the bracket itself had like a stop on it, so it was able to twist enough to hit that stop, and then it jammed in place and actually locked it. So I was able to get the nut break free. So now I'm just trying to get the nut off. So I get that solenoid out of the way. But I may just take these fuel lines out now. I'm not sure yet. Let me see how the rest of this goes, because then it'll make my life easier. Okay, well that's actually the EGR solenoid. It's the pirate's favorite solenoid, the EGR. Okay. Excuse the poor humor. I am a pop-up, so I have to come up with bad pop-up jokes. Okay, so let me see if I can get just the socket, the deep socket down here, because I might be able to. And oh look, the EGR is actually partially obstructing the last bolt. Nope, this is actually too deep. So let's see if we can get this in place. This is bringing back some really bad memories. I will say that. And I can get on it, but it's extremely difficult. Let me see if I can get a ratcheting wrench on there. Hang on a minute. Let me see what I have hanging around. Let's see, I got 13. There's a 14. 14 is close enough to 9/16. Hopefully it'll work. It works enough. What the hell was that? But now my light is in the way. I don't recall, but for some reason, bad memories are coming into my head about having to take that EGR valve off to get the last and final bolt out. It's like there's just so many things about the way GM designed this vehicle. There's just so many things that they could have done better. At least this body style, when it came out with the LS motor, and you know, the one that kind of looks like a fish in the front with the arrow headlights. At least when they came out with those were much easier to work on. Oh, and the last bolt is actually loose. Okay. But is it loose enough to get with my fingers? That's the question. Nope, it's not loose enough to get with my fingers, but it's not tight. And now it is loose enough to get with my fingers. All right, come on out. All right, so it's all out. The only thing remaining are the fuel lines. So let me just see about prying this intake upward to get it separated. You got to keep it separated. Like I said, if this was something I cared about, I wouldn't be so rough on it. But I really don't care about this motor. Okay. So the pry bar did break it free. And there it's coming forward. So now I can get the tool on here. I think this is a roller motor, I'm not even sure. Meaning a roller cam motor. It's okay clean on the inside, it's not perfect. So here's the intake. Like I said, far from spotless, but it doesn't look terrible. So I don't know. I guess it wasn't well maintained, but wasn't horribly maintained either. All right, let me get the fuel line tool to get those off. All right, there's a couple of different types of tools you can use, this being one of them. I don't know if it's going to work on this. I have another set that I actually ordered online just yesterday, and it actually just showed up a little while ago, but it's inside the house. What it does is it goes up underneath the collar here, and there's like locking tabs inside there. And this releases those locking tabs. So you push this up. And usually what I do is give it a little bit of a spin. See that? Like so. And then it releases. And there's different sizes for different size lines. You can use these for AC lines too, like on Fords. Some Fords have the old style AC lines with like this, like kind of like this type of a fitting, but it actually has a spring on the inside that you can actually see. All right, and then I usually get it up inside and I twist it around and then it releases. Well, let me show you, let me actually put this on the floor so I don't knock it over. Because I do want to keep this intake. This is actually a good intake. I do want to hold on to it. Oh, I got fuel leaking on the floor now. Cool. Let me just put this on the floor. I just want you to see the inside of these fuel lines so you understand what I'm talking about. So if you look inside, see those 4 tabs? What you're doing is those 4 tabs lock onto the fuel line, and what you're doing is by slipping that tool in there, you are pushing them away from the piece that it locks onto. See, they come to an end in there, and there's O-rings on the inside is what actually seals it. So when you depress those, it actually, those fingers popped to the other side of this. So when you depress them, it pushes them out large enough for this to allow it to slip past. All right. So now, I think all we have is 2 motor mount bolts, and this thing's ready to come out. I think that's a job for tomorrow. I don't think I want to do that tonight. I've been out here all day. I'm tired. Plus, I was listening to Judas Priest before I started this, and I had to stop listening so I could record this video for y'all. So, I hope you appreciate that. Judas Priest means a lot. All right, so it's the next day. I'm back at it. Like I said, I believe all I have is the 2 motor mount bolts left to move some of this junk out to the side and yank this thing out. So, the driver's side one's going to be a little bit of a pain. And I believe I'm going to have to do that one from underneath. The passenger side one, since everything's already out, I should be able to get it from up top. Now GM uses a straight through bolt with a nut on the other side. So hopefully I mean, I could grab the other side. I already tried it with a wrench. It's 5/8 on the front, on the bolt side, and the nut is usually 11/16. So I can just barely get onto the nut, but I think I have enough to actually hold on to. So let me see if I can set you up in a tripod or something somehow so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, I think this is about the best I'm going to muster on this side is this setup. So got to go to the back side to try to catch the nut. Oops. I got it to loosen. And I'm not grabbing the nut. Yeah, this is not cooperating at all. I don't think it's a 3/4. I could swear that's supposed to be an 11/16. Let me see. I'm really surprised it's fighting me this bad. Can I even see it on the other side? Yeah, I could just see it if I look down from behind the shock tower. Okay. All right, here it is. And it is not a 3/4. And it's not 11/16 either, so it must be a metric. So this is actually not a 5/8 in the front either. This is probably a 15 if I had to venture a guess. Yeah, and it is a 15. It fits sloppy. You probably can't see it. It fits sloppy inside the socket, so it's got to be a 15. All right, let me pause this while I try to figure out how. Whoops, I'm going to do the other side and show you. All right, we're going to try this and see how this works. I got to crawl underneath it, but this over here, that's the bolt I got to get out. And it is, in fact, a 15 and an 18. So this is hopefully the last time I'm crawling under this car for engine removal purposes. Gigi's barking at something over there. I don't know what. All right, I can see the back of the mount pretty easily. But believe it or not, from under here, I cannot see the front of the mount. So that's all by feel. That's tightening. You think? Yep, that's exactly what it was. Tightening. All right. Ugh. Tell you, the worst job I ever did on my back was helping my best friend Ed. We're still friends today, and I think you've heard me mention him before. We pulled the transmission, he rebuilt it, and put it back in on his dad's 1976 Cadillac Eldorado. We did it in the driveway, and while we were installing it, a snowstorm happened. This is up in New York. So we were actually laying under the car while it was snowing, and the driveway was had a slight pitch to it, so water was like running underneath us while we were installing the tranny. What an absolutely miserable job that was. Well, we got it done. And the tranny worked. trying to see if it'll walk itself out. I don't know what you could see or if I'm in the way. Now, a little trick you could do too, when dealing with a bolt like that has a shoulder on it, or any bolt really, as long as you can get behind it, put an open end wrench, and this way you could use it as force to walk it out. All right, that's it. I think we're ready to come out. The tripod I have you on is super sketchy, so I was kind of worried about possibly dropping you and breaking my phone. Everything's done on my phone. All right, let me reposition everything, and then we're going to pull this motor out. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to hook a chain up in the valley there and basically go from an intake bolt to an intake bolt. Whenever you're using a chain like such, if you have a bolt that you're questioning that you're putting through, let's say this, and you're wondering, will it be too small and possibly pop through, just put a washer on it. If you have any question whatsoever, if you have something like this, just to be on the safe side so you don't accidentally do something or create something that you really didn't want to create. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, I'm wondering if the other head has a hole here. Let me check that out and see what we actually have. And of course, forgot the oil pressure switch is in the way, but it's broken anyway. I really don't care about it. That's the other thing too. When you're leaning a motor back, when you're pulling a transmission out, like especially on an older motor that has a distributor in the back, be wary of what's going to hit the firewall. Because if you hit the firewall with a distributor, you could break a distributor. I've seen it happen. I have broken a distributor cap, and this was like many, many, many years ago. But yeah, so just something to consider. Now I can't reach my hand behind there to feel because the oil pressure switch is in the way, but it's broken, so I don't really care about it at this point in time. Now it's broken even more. It was mostly dead before, now it's completely dead. And of course, there is nothing in the back there that I can go onto. So, intake bolt holes, it is. Let's remove the old intake gasket. And I don't think these are not original intake gaskets. So this thing probably had the oil leak that they all had. Oh, look at that. Oh, for a second I thought I cut my finger. It actually ripped the hole in the glove. All right. Because sometimes you can actually cut your finger and it bleeds underneath. But I just wasn't seeing it right at first. All right. Now this thing has to be very tight to the galley. I can't have much chain slack. And also, get your bolts down as far as you can get them to go. Let me go grab a ratchet or something. I had to do a cleanup before and I put away all the tools. Because I had a gigantic mess with tools. And yes, remember yesterday I was questioning if this is a hydraulic roller cam, and yes, it is a hydraulic roller cam. I'm just trying to get those bolts on the chain down as far as possible. That'll give me the most grip. Okay, I don't think I have anything attached to the motor that has to come off, like power steering. That's all separate and off of there. Cooler hoses. Starter wiring is already, I cut all of that. Didn't really care. So, all right. think we can go in and hopefully get this thing out of there. Hopefully this hoist that I have is long enough too. That's another thing. This is the least expensive Harbor Freight hoist they have. And the reason I have it is I took that hoist on a partial trade from a buddy of mine. So you know what I'm going to do too? I'm going to tighten up this. I'm going to basically choke up on the chain, so to speak. Yeah, my buddy Jerry, he actually got this hoist as a partial trade for something he did. So then I got this hoist from him. And whoever actually installed this did this wrong, because the chain is not supposed to come out the front. The chain is actually supposed to go up from underneath, like this. So you're going to go one link and then through, because this will keep it in this orientation, because if I went one more up, the chain would be sideways, and I kind of don't want that. And in all honesty, my other engine hoist, which I just got back from New York, all the bolts, I always keep them loose. Because this way, in case I have to do something like this, you know, on the fly, I could just go ahead and do it. Actually, I may have to have you change positions here. All right. Now, one thing, when I traded for this hoist, it didn't have a piston. So I bought a double pump piston, which I think might come in handy in this situation. And unfortunately, I think this is going to be too long, because I don't think I'm going to be able to pick it up off the cowl to do what I need to do. All right. Yeah, this ain't going to work, because that height there is just not enough. All right. Next thought process. And here, this is the perfect reason why I never tighten these up. They don't have to be tight. But this bolt will not fit through this chain. However, a single link through here, if I did a single link through here, and then a nut and a bolt through a link. Yeah, I think that'll work. I think I have another chain somewhere, or either that or I can cut this chain. So this way I just have a single link. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that, because I think that'll work better for what I need. All right. I got to go in the other room. I'm not going to film me cutting this with a cutting wheel, because what will happen is I'd be afraid of any of the sparks hitting the camera and ruining the camera. So, plus it's just too tight where I'm going to be at. All right, let's see if this works. Basically, I have two links. Unless I can make, you know what? I wonder. Actually, another thought might make this even easier. If I can add a link into that chain, basically not add a link, but just move the front mounting point in one or out one. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. I think this might actually work better. Go in one like this. This way I could pick up the center like this to go into the engine hoist and use a bolt to go straight through. Hopefully it'll be enough room. We'll find out. I'll use one of the motor mount bolts since I have one of them handy. There, go like that. Hook that up into the hoist. And I'll put this motor mount bolt through the chain link. Yes, I think that's going to work. Like I said before, sometimes talking, even though there's nobody here, talking out a problem out loud actually does help. That sounds ridiculous and people are going to think you're nuts, but that's okay. I don't care if people think I'm nuts. I don't care what other people think. To be honest with you, I never have. All right, this hoist is actually not long enough. Dang it, I've got to be out here. So I may actually have to pick this thing up at a different point and favor the nose of the motor. You don't have to put the nut on, but I might have to favor the nose of it, pick it up enough to get it and rest it on top of like the sway bar and the cross member, like rest the oil pan on it. Now, the reason I mentioned before about this double pump hoist, or the piston that I bought for it pumps up and down. So even when I pull up, it pumps. When I push down, it pumps. And you can see I am in a tight, precarious spot here. But each time I'm doing it, it pumps. So that's why I like these pistons. I don't remember where I got it from. If I had to venture a guess, the heck is the name of that company now? I'll think of it and I'll let you know. National Hydraulic? No. Hydraulic Warehouse? No. See, I'm hitting the cowl now. I gotta come forward. Northern Hydraulics. There it is. I knew I'd eventually remember. Oops, I think I just hit the camera. But you can still see what I'm doing, right? Yeah. Let me just move you guys a little bit. Yeah, Northern Hydraulics is the company I'm thinking of. All right, I'm going to let this down a little bit. All right, well, it's forward, so that's good. Now, I'm just going to move the hoist more towards the middle. and maybe even favor the back slightly. Come on. There we go. The old saying goes, when there's a will, there's a way. All right. Oh, more antifreeze on the floor. Amazing how there's always more antifreeze. This is just a tight fit. There is like zero room behind this motor, and there's zero room at the front of the motor. So what can you see? Let me just verify what you're looking at. All right. Let me go get some absorber mats for the floor before I get this stuff all over the place. One thing I hate is coolant on the floor. All right, hang on. That's just a couple. Let me go grab them. They're in the other room. You would think I'd be smart enough to keep these out there where I'm working, but I'm not that smart. All right, just tossing these on the floor real quick. Trying to absorb everything I can. All right, so just a matter of making sure our cooler lines aren't catching anything. And I don't care about these cooler lines, to be honest with you. So they can get cut or whatever. And honestly, it's just this cooler line here. So now, here's the battery cable. And here's the starter harness that I cut. And there it is, liberated from its home. The incredibly horrible LT1. I mean, the motor itself wasn't a bad motor. They actually ran pretty good. But to do any work on them was just a nightmare, especially in these cars. Corvettes weren't bad because you had a flip-up hood. So, all right, let me start cleaning up a little bit here, and got to figure out what I'm doing with this motor for now. It's going to get stuck in a corner somewhere, I think. I got to try to figure out how to get the rest of the coolant out of it. I'm going to cut those coolant pipes off on the other side. Show you that. Those pipes, I'm just going to cut them off. Like I said, I do not care about them. So, and look at that. That's a weird contraption to adapt the oil filter. Angle plug heads. Those were actually good heads. But look at the ignition wires. I mean, they run them right behind the exhaust manifold. Just such a horrible, horrible design. But it's out finally. And I don't know if you guys know much about old Chryslers, but this reminds me of the old Slant 6 K-frames that they used in Dodge Darts, because they would have an offset one on the driver's side, because the engine of Slant 6s, as its name inscribes, is the motor sits at an angle. So that's why they did that with the mount. So it's just weird to see that in this body. So, I mean, that's just a frame adapter. The actual mount itself on this side is on the motor, whereas the mount on that side is on the frame. All right. So, all right, let me just start cleaning some stuff up here. And like I said, what I got to do too is this thing's going to go outside and get power washed, though. I'm not sure if I'm doing that today, though. Let me figure out what I'm going to do here, and then we're going to end this video. All right, so that's actually going to be it for today on this. I'm whooped. I've worked an awful lot on this thing the last few days. I need to take a couple-hour break here. I still got cleanup stuff to do. But tomorrow night I can go back onto it and do some things. There's a lot of contemplating I have to do here. Believe it or not, doing an LS swap on this car is not as easy as it sounds. The 98 is when they actually, this is a 95, so up to 97 had this idiot motor. And then in 98 is when they went to the LS motors. And the cross member is different. The steering rack is different. There's a lot of differences in the car. So even dropping it in the LS motor with a set of, like, say, swap mounts, from everything I've read, it puts the motor too high up and too far back, which a lot of times far back is good, but it interferes with some other things that are already designed to run with an LS. So that's the things I've been running into. So trying to decide what I want to do here. What I might do is get an LS steering rack and make my own motor mounts, so this way the motor sits where it needs to sit. Or buy universal mounts for, like, kit cars and build them to fit my application. I got to see if somebody has they sell what's called mock-up blocks. Basically, it's like either a plastic LS motor, or sometimes they have them built out of sheet metal, where it's just like the frame of the motor, but it's all the right dimensions. This way you can bolt headers up to it, bolt intake onto it, stuff like that, so you can see where everything's going to sit in your car before you actually go ahead and, you know, play with the heavy motor that's going in place. So that's another thought, is seeing if somebody has one of those that will let me borrow. But anyway, that's it for now. We're going to end it right there. And tomorrow night I'll come in and I'll do some cleanup, and then we'll continue and strip down that motor. So right now I'm just going to let it down on the hoist so it's not hanging out all the way up in the air. But yeah, so hopefully you got something out of that. If you did, hit that like button. If good, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.